In addition to all the beautiful things that most of you, if not all of you, have to say about the content that's on my channel, I do get a fair amount of flack, a fair amount of criticism, and I think rightly so, because a majority of my videos involve me jerking off to Goldman Sachs. And so I thought, for this video, let's just change things up a bit. Instead of like jizzing to Goldman Sachs, let's just jizz to all the finance places that I worked at in the past. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through all the finance offers that I've secured ever since the time I entered college in August 2011, why I chose to apply to those places, and a very brief summary of how I got into those places. And after I give you a brief summary about how I got into each of the places that I'm going to be talking about, you'll realize that getting a job, especially if you're trying to break into a competitive role, a competitive company, is very non-linear and involves a lot more than just having solid technical know-how. So we'll kick things off by first rewinding to the summer of 2014. The summer of 2014 is when I was working for PwC. Now, granted, this was in a finance role. I was doing consulting, but had it not been for my internship with PwC in New York City, summer of 2014, I probably would not have caught the finance bug. So I was doing consulting, but I was doing consulting within the financial services industry. And so that was my first real exposure to finance, not to mention the fact that, I was working in the financial capital of the world, New York City. Hence, I got the finance bug. And throughout the course of that internship, I became very captivated by finance. And I felt that, there's no way that I'm working in consulting, because consultants are banking rejects, investment banking rejects end up going to consulting. And so I just had this picture in my mind that, consultants are small swinging dicks, but Anubhav Jain wants to be a big swinging dick. At the end of my PwC internship, I ended up getting a full-time offer from them because that was supposed to be my last summer in college. But after the experience that I had in New York City, I felt that I had to actually maybe do a finance internship as well. And so I started taking lots of finance classes in college. As a result of those extra classes that I took, my graduation got delayed by one semester. And so that opened up an extra summer for me. And I just felt that, I have this newfound love for finance. And in order for me to be able to verify whether it's actual love or it's just infatuation, let me perhaps actually work in finance and gun for a finance internship during my final summer in college. And so between the end of my PwC internship and the start of the following summer, I frantically applied to lots of finance places, took lots of finance classes when I was in college, joined the investments committee on campus as well, just so that I could actually position myself to maximize my chances of breaking into the world of finance. I got a couple of offers because of my best efforts. One of them was from a boutique investment bank in Atlanta, Georgia, which was the city in which I attended college, called Childs Advisory Partners. I think the name may have changed since then, but yeah, Childs Advisory Partners, which was an investment banking internship. And the other one was an offer from Deutsche Bank to work on the trading floor, to work in the global markets division at Deutsche Bank in their Jacksonville, Florida office. Now, I was really confused only because I wasn't quite sure about whether I was more captivated or enamored by investment banking, or was I more captivated by sales and trading. I loved finance in general, but didn't quite know which side, the public side or the private side, should I actually pledge my allegiance to. And so I ended up just going with the bigger brand name. I ended up going with Deutsche Bank. Besides, the name Childs Advisory Partners sucked, dude. Imagine you're just showing off to your friends, right? Or your female friends, trying to impress them, saying, you know what? I'm an investment banker at Childs Advisory Partners. Doesn't sound all that impressive, does it? So I started my internship with Deutsche Bank summer of 2015, working on the trading floor in Jacksonville, Florida. I did really well during the internship, impressed all my bosses, impressed HR as well. And at the end of the internship, I gained 15 pounds, as you can probably tell from this picture. Had a negative bank balance because I was, spending all my money getting absolutely fucked up at a lot of those beachside bars. And most importantly, I ended up getting a full-time offer to come back to Deutsche full-time. Now, of course, I was happy. I was delighted, right? But at the same time, a part of me was like, dude, Anubhav, you're going to be 23 years old, right? When you graduate from college. You don't want to be fucking working at Jacksonville, Florida, dude. I mean, you want to be starting out your career in New York City, the heart of finance, as opposed to Jacksonville, which is honestly like a retirement home. A lot of bankers or traders who work in New York City for like 20 odd years, right, move to Florida only because, they're looking for like a calmer land, a land where they can raise their family, where they can get married, raise their kids, as opposed to in New York City where, it's a lot more chaotic that way. And so I felt that, look, I don't want to be entering a fucking retirement home, right after graduating college. I can maybe do that once I'm in my 30s or 40s. And so I had one more semester before graduation, or one more semester after the end of my Deutsche internship. And that's when I was like, you know what, Anubhav, pedal to the metal, fifth gear, sixth gear, full throttle, just start applying to places in New York City, and hopefully you can leverage this offer to end up getting a role in New York City. I tried, but the thing with most banks is, especially solid places to work at, unless you've actually interned with them, they're very reluctant to give you a full-time offer. And so I had promising, interviews with them, but they just said that, look, we can't really take a gamble on you because you haven't quite interned with us. And so I just felt that, look, I mean, I'll probably have to start my career at Deutsche Bank coming out of college. But then, I had one more trick left up my sleeve, and there was this one alum from Georgia Tech who was working at Goldman Sachs and was working on the trading floor at Goldman Sachs in New York City. And so I reached out to him, I introduced myself, I told him my story, and then he could relate to my story to some extent. And he was like, look, Anubhav, why don't you come down and meet the people belonging to my team. And so I flew to New York, spent my own money to fly to New York, because this was initially supposed to be a phone interview, but I just lied to him saying that, look, Russ is what his name was, Russ, I'm going to be in New York City for a conference, and so while I'm there, I would love to be able to meet you guys. So I was like, fuck it, let's just spend $400. I spent $400, flew to New York City, met with Russ, met with all the team members belonging to Russ's team, and they were really impressed by me. But again, they told me that, look, the policy is that we can't really give you a full-time offer unless you've interned here, but as a consolation, what we could do is we could give you a 1-month winter internship offer. Not all banks have this, but Goldman, at least back then, had a winter internship program. They used to call it a winternship program. And so they gave me a winternship offer. So I flew back to Atlanta to finish college with the winternship offer in my hand. But think about this. I was sort of in a tricky situation because I also had an offer from Deutsche Bank, which I had to accept only because imagine if I did not end up getting a full-time offer from Goldman Sachs at the end of my winter internship. I would have been in no man's land. And so as a safety net, I was like, look, let me just accept Deutsche's offer. I'll graduate college. I'll work at Goldman Sachs. And then if I do end up getting an offer to work full-time, to come back to Goldman Sachs full-time, then fuck it. I'll just renege on my Deutsche offer. I won't go to Deutsche. Instead, I'll just go to Goldman Sachs, showing Deutsche the middle finger. So I graduated college in December 2015 with a full-time offer from Deutsche Bank, which I was scheduled to start in April of 2016, as well as a winter internship offer from Goldman Sachs, which was scheduled to start in February of 2016. So I had about a month and a half between graduating college and the start of my winternship with Goldman Sachs, and I decided to spend that month and a half vacationing all throughout the United States. Spent a fair bit of time in Hawaii as well, where I was flaunting the beach board that I had back then, unlike the dad board that I have right now. Once the vacation ended, I flew off to New York City, started my winternship. I had just 30 days to impress those guys. And so before the start of the winternship, I'd made up my mind that, Anubhav, you have to go absolutely all out. And so I worked my butt off throughout the 30 days that I had. I still remember during my last week at the winter internship, I was having a chat with my boss, the same guy from Georgia Tech, and he told me, Anubhav, look, to be completely honest with you, you've done remarkably well, you've done exceptionally well during this winter internship, but unfortunately, we currently don't have headcount, and so we can't really afford to spend money hiring more people on the team, only because we don't quite have headcount because of certain budget constraints. And that was a brilliant life lesson for me in the sense that, a lot of times we feel whenever, say, we end up getting rejected from a job, or whenever, say, we don't quite get a full-time offer to come back to a company where we may have interned, we feel it's because of a lack of merit. And so we're very quick to actually point the fingers at ourselves, thinking, because I lacked what it took to get a full-time offer from this company, or to, get an interview from this company, I'm not good enough. But oftentimes, we don't quite have a sense of what happens behind the scenes. And maybe people thought that, you were deserving of the job, you had the merit for the job, but because of, budget constraints, because of a lack of headcount, the company wasn't quite able to give you an offer. And so despite the disappointment that I was feeling for not having been able to secure a full-time offer from Goldman Sachs, I still took a lot of heart from my manager's words, only because I could tell, number one, that his words were genuine, because, I had that sort of a relationship, that sort of an understanding with him where we were supremely candid with each other. And number two, and more importantly, I just felt that, look, granted, I might be going to Deutsche Bank right now, but at the same time, as long as, I keep in touch with the people at Goldman, I do a good job at Deutsche Bank, I don't quite, get caught for fucking smuggling drugs or doing anything illegal, which would put me behind bars, then I might, end up getting a full-time offer from Goldman Sachs sooner rather than later, in the event that headcount does open up at Goldman Sachs. Something else that I took a lot of heart from at the end of the internship was the fact that I had actually shed a few kilos. That's because, my balls had shrunk in size because of the severe and harsh New York winters. Finished my winter internship with Goldman Sachs, reluctantly flew off to Jacksonville, Florida, and started working full-time at Deutsche. I actually started enjoying what I was doing at Deutsche, and I was doing really well as well. I was enjoying the full-time job that I was doing, but at the same time, I knew that it's going to be even more fun if I were to work in New York City at Goldman Sachs. And so throughout my period at Deutsche, pretty much, from the get-go, I started keeping in touch with the people I had met at Goldman Sachs during the winter internship. I knew that I had to keep in touch just so that, I was top of mind for them. And lo and behold, I think this was maybe 5 months after having started my full-time role with Deutsche Bank, I ended up getting a call from HR at Goldman Sachs saying, hey, we might have, some headcount right now. We would love for you to come in and do another round of interviews. And so I flew to New York City and had about 16 interviews in one day, from morning until late afternoon. Exhausting day. But I got tremendous feedback after the interviews were done. And within a day or two after the conclusion of my interviews, I got a full-time offer from Goldman Sachs, and I jumped ship from Deutsche Bank in Jacksonville, Florida, to my dream job at Goldman Sachs in New York City. I first started working on Goldman Sachs' trading floor. I worked on the trading floor for about 18 months, but I wasn't quite liking my first role, to be completely honest. I was disillusioned with life because of how miserable I was doing a role that I wasn't quite enjoying. And that's when I felt that, maybe investment banking is more in my wheelhouse. It better aligns with my skills and my set of interests. And so in order to actually pivot from sales and trading at Goldman Sachs to investment banking at Goldman Sachs, I just started networking with a lot of bankers at Goldman. And when I say networking, what I really mean is I started sucking their dick. Not quite literally, but I did tell them that, look, I promise to become your bitch if you do end up hiring me. And I used to end up telling the bankers that, look, you know what, your children aren't quite happy with you, your wife isn't quite happy with you because you're barely spending time with them because you're leaving the office around 11 p.m., midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. So let me, take some of your burden. I'll become your bitch such that, you might get a chance to actually go back home around 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. And, it might just end up saving your relationship with your wife. Goes without saying, that was an offer they couldn't refuse. I spent a total of 6 months in investment banking, 6 highly rewarding months. Honestly, those 6 months that I spent in banking were probably a lot more rewarding compared to the 18 months that I spent in the sales and trading division. After which I moved back home to India in July of 2018. I won't go into the reasons because I extensively explained all the reasons in this video of mine. So definitely check out this video of mine. I came back to India, and for the first 2-3 months, I did fuck all. I was pretty much doing soul searching, aka I was jerking off all day long, and I soon realized that, look, jerking off doesn't quite pay the bills for you. And so I had to actually, start applying to places. That's when I decided that, look, I have to look for jobs in the sports media industry because I really wanted to become a sports presenter. And so I started applying to lots of these sports media companies, but none of them took a punt on me. None of them even responded to me. And I was dejected. I was disillusioned. And now this was December of 2018. So a solid 5 or 6 months after I moved back to India. And that's when I felt that, look, beggars can't be choosers. Just end up taking any job offer that comes your way. And so I started applying to finance jobs again and applied to a FinTech company, a FinTech startup called Kite in Delhi. And within a month, perhaps even less than a month, I really started regretting having joined that company. It was fuck all. I absolutely hated myself, probably hated myself a lot more compared to how much I hated myself when I was doing my sales and trading role at Goldman Sachs. The only saving grace was the fact that, my boss was pretty fucking hot. I think she was only maybe a year or a couple of years older than I was, but a typical Delhi Punjabi girl. You know, that's exactly what my type is. She had a very husky voice as well. I've got a thing for husky voices. Husky voices really turn me on. Just like, you know, alcohol turns on an alcoholic, or a male with a British accent turns on an American girl, or Virat Kohli turns on Anubhav Jain. Within 3 or 4 months of having started the job, I was like, fuck it, I'm out of finance. And, through a combination of luck as well as hard work, I was able to secure a move to ESPN Cricinfo, which is why I interned as a junior presenter during the ICC Cricket World Cup 2019. But that's a conversation for a different video. In conclusion, I want to tell you that, look, I definitely consider myself to be extremely lucky to have gotten a chance to work at enviable names, you know, corporate behemoths such as Deutsche Bank, PwC, Goldman Sachs, others as well that I worked for later on. Hearing a lot of these names might give you the impression that Anubhav is some sort of whiz kid or genius or prodigy, but let me tell you that I'm not. I'm certainly no fool, but I know that there are plenty of people who possess a lot more caliber than I do, who aren't half as successful in their corporate track record as I have been. But what sets me apart is that through years of very deliberate learning, experimentation and practice, I've been able to ascertain foolproof hacks or techniques or ways in which anyone can sway the odds in his or her favor when gunning for coveted jobs, and then subsequently go on to become top performers in those respective jobs. And that's exactly what I'm going to be covering in granular detail in my upcoming workshop called the A to Z of Professional Development. The page that you see on your screen has more details about everything that the workshop will entail, and you can find the link to the page in the description section. And in case a group orgy isn't quite your cup of tea and you'd rather have like one-on-one time with Anubhav, then I've got you covered. You can sign up for a 45-minute one-on-one counseling session with me as well. That's all I had, folks. My job is done, but your job isn't done as yet, because you're yet to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Brilliant. Now both our jobs are done. Until next time, take care, stay safe, keep smashing it, and cheers.